Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here on Journey to a Million. This is Rashad, and today I have a very special guest. I have Maribel, the Immigrant Money Coach. How you doing?
Ooh, good. Hi, Rashad. Thank you for having me again. Time to catch up.
Again, again. And you have done some really big things since the last time we spoke last year. And I think we can hit on that in a little bit, but I just
Mhm.
wanted to kind of talk a little bit about who you are. I know that I I can't necessarily remember the first time I saw you, whose channel I saw you on, but I saw you on Instagram, and your Instagram channel, of course, is Our Wealth Matters. And I thought, wow, she's amazing. She's going to resonate with so many people, so I have to get her on the channel. So tell everybody who might be seeing you for the first time who you are.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maribel. I'm the Immigrant Money Coach. I cater to people who are either fully undocumented or a DACA-mented, so they got your DACA status, or the first generation born in the United States, because that's the bucket that I fall under. And this all really came out of me and my parents. Well, my parents being immigrants. I was born here, and then my dad got deported. My mom and I ended up living in the streets. And the more I learn about personal finance, the more I'm convinced that a properly funded emergency fund would have helped avoid the situation of just us ending up, without a roof over our heads. And if you have started your personal finance journey at all, like emergency fund is like step number one in beginning, putting together your monetary assets. So I'm here to teach our community. And then I also saw that there was hardly any information out there in Spanish. So I was like, at first I was like, I'm just going to do Spanish and English. And then it became more, like prominent, the fact that I saw that there was hardly anything out there for immigrants or anything like that was out there, like in the open. There seemed to be some stuff that was like, oh, well, I do cater to immigrants. And I'm like, yeah, but there's no marketing around it. Like, how is anybody supposed to find you? So I'm just like, okay, I'm out here openly talking about how immigrants, whether they're documented or undocumented, can legally earn, save, and invest their money while they're in the United States.
Perfect. So I definitely want to hit on that. I'm going to ask you specifically about some brokerages where they can do that. But first, I want to go back to one of the first things you said. You talked about an emergency fund. Now, a lot of people will say, how do I fund an emergency fund when I don't make enough money to do that? So I want to first ask you, what are your recommendations on people to get started and fund an emergency fund? And do you fall more on the 3 month side or 6 month or even longer?
So I I think even when I start with any clients, I take it one step back, and it's really trying to figure out your why, because your why is what's going to drive you to go through the rest of the steps. When you start wondering like, why the fudge am I even doing this? Your why is like your shining light of, I want to do it because I want to buy a house, because I want to buy my parents a house, because I want to retire, because I want to provide my kids with X, Y, and Z. And that's really the thing that should be pushing you. That way, once you get to the emergency fund, even though it's like, hey, right now I don't maybe earn enough, it's like, well, is this why strong enough? If it is, that's going to push you to be like, well, we got to figure out a way because this thing is really important to me. So for me, because we did end up like, on the streets when my when my dad got deported, to me, it's like, it's how much money ever makes you feel comfortable. Really, because I'm not going to be the one going through a loop on that roller coaster of emotions when, shit hits the fan. It's going to be you. So
Yeah.
really, whatever amount of money makes you feel comfortable is the right amount. But if you really need something to be like, okay, but I need some tangible numbers, a lot of people recommend 3 to 6 months because that's about how long it takes to find a new job if you either leave your old job or are let go from your previous job. So I'm more on the side of like, yes, 3 to 6, more six. I'm just very cautious that way. I'd rather have six. But if it takes more money in the bank to make you feel comfortable, go with that. Because at the end of the day, it's for your peace of mind.
Wow. So you basically have said some of the same things I've said. I'm not necessarily a cookie cutter guy. Like, I don't think that you should just say $5,000 or $1,000 or anything like that. I think that it really is whatever makes you feel comfortable. Is
Mhm.
is it true that women actually prefer more money than men? Like, men are more like, go with the flow, and then women are more like, hey, I need that safety net. I want to feel comfortable rather than just all willy nilly, just do whatever.
Yeah, so I don't speak for all women, right? We're not all a monolith, but I think there has been studies shown that we are tend to be more cautious, right? That's why it also takes women longer to begin investing in the stock markets because they tend to be more cautious and it's like I earned this hard money. I don't want it to go away just like that. So I can believe if you were to say like, hey, women want more money saved up, I totally believe it.
Oh, I gotcha. And it totally makes sense. I mean, even with my wife, she's more like, "Hey, I think we need to do this and do that," and I'm like, "No, I think that's doing the most. Like we can, yeah,
And
yeah,
we're just
yeah,
like, we're just putting safety nets, all right? If something don't
yeah,
work out, we gotta have plan B and then plan C.
yeah. So I mean, if somebody thinks they need $50,000, that might be too much to one person. One person might say, "Oh, I can invest that $50,000," but then somebody else might say, "Hey, I really want that $50,000 in cash," which is quite a bit of money. But I think it's all individual. That's why it's called personal finance. It's
Yeah.
no
And then
one
it depends on
approach.
your expenses, right? Because even
Yep,
when you're doing the 3 to 6 months, it's of living expenses. So if your living expenses for 6 months is 50K, like, you might have a mortgage and you have a car payment and you have your children's schooling, and that doesn't even get to the food and putting the roof over the head, turning the lights on, and food on the table. Like it might take 50,000. What may seem like a lot to somebody that is a different income level may be like just enough for someone who's at a higher income level.
got it. It makes a lot of sense. So when we talk about the whole undocumented space, it's obviously become a political football in our country. Is people just throwing haymakers, and you hear so many hateful comments. What is it like for an undocumented immigrant? Take away the reasons that they come to this country, but what is it like when they set foot in the country? Let's suppose you're 5 years old or 10 years old. Like, what does it look like?
I think so. I didn't come in that specific scenario, but did grow up in the scenario where my parents were undocumented. And from that point of view, it's like you can't really talk about it. You don't know who you can talk about it with and who you can't. Like even your little friends, right? You're brought up as this is something that you don't say. If you do say it, like, when you come home, your parents might not be there. And so it becomes a very like in the back of your mind, it's always like if you get home and your parents aren't there, you're trying to figure out where they're at because they could be at the store, they could just not be coming back. And that's a very precarious situation to be in. And then, typically your parents or an elder will be like, if your parents do go away, then you end up in the social security, like social system. And then, you go down that avenue, that pipeline, which I've heard is also not the best to be, a ward of the state. And then you maybe never get to see your parents again. And so it just kind of devolves into this type of situation of, just don't talk about the situation. You're with your mom and your dad. If you start talking, we don't know where you're gonna end up.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense, and it's scary. These are children, and for the most part, people are, regardless of whatever country you immigrate to, you're looking for a better life. The parents,
Mhm.
and these are children, and people are, always saying negative things about them. And the sad thing is that you're right. Like I think that they always have a bullseye on their back, and they never know when they're going to come home, and their parents aren't home, or they never know when they're going to be deported. So I think that's a difficult life to live. But from what I've seen, especially being in education, they're like some of the hardest working individuals. They really want this country to do better, and they want to be a contributing factor to that. So when you talk about finances, how does that impact their viewpoint on investing and saving?
Yeah, so a lot of the clients that I've had to now tend to be like children of immigrants or immigrants themselves, and they've gotten through that university part of their life, and now they're living like in corporate America, and they're like, I'm the first generation and going through USA corporate America, which is also my story, and they're like, what the heck is a 401k, an IRA, and in that sense, they're trying to integrate further into the folds of American life because they understand that it's not just going to work every single day. That's not how we incorporate. You also, have to start building money like Americans build money, right? Work smarter, not harder
Yeah.
type of thing. So a lot of the clients that come to me, they're already invested in the idea of like, okay, I need to invest. I just need to figure out how. because they understand that, money makes America run. Like, you need to pay money to pay the rent and the food, and to retire. It's not like maybe somewhere else. So like my family, they're agricultural families, so nobody's gonna fire you, right, from your job. Like, you just decide, I'm gonna stop, and give the land off to other people, or you have workers, something like that. But in the United States, corporate America, that's not the case. At a certain age, you're gonna be let go. Here's your retirement package. Have spend more time with your grandchildren. Sorry, with your grandchildren. And so you're like, okay, so there's definitely a stop here in the United States that isn't necessarily the case somewhere else. So it's like, okay, we got to get ready. How do we get ready for this? So it's more of okay, I know I need to invest. How do we get there? How do we do it? Like, right, I only earn so much money from my paycheck. What are we doing with this to make it multiply?
Mhm. It's interesting you say that. There's supposed to be a stopping point here in America, but unfortunately, like if you look at the numbers, so many people are working. Well, my mom is 70, she'll be 73 next year, and she's still teaching. And there have been studies that have shown, like, I think maybe 40% of people over 60 have $1,000 in savings. Like, that's mind blowing. You could work so long and you don't even have $1,000 for an emergency. So I think that it's something that we really need to focus on as a country, whether you're, a documented or undocumented immigrant, or just a naturalized US citizen. I just think we do such a poor job with teaching people to invest and save money. Well, I think you went on mute.
Oh, I said agreed. So, I'm just so happy that there are laws that are changing that are requiring personal finance to be taught, right? And even if it's not finessed, it's like, hey, this is still, going in the right direction, because we're at least putting it in front. Like, how are people supposed to know that they need to learn how to invest in a 401k or an IRA when they never even know that this exists?
Absolutely. And I think, that's why it's imperative that we have people like you who are spreading the word, because, the first step is to get people to understand that you should be investing. But then people are so excited that they know that they need to invest, but then they start going to these shady, brokers who have these high fee investments. So
Mm.
why don't you tell people about the investments that you recommend to your clients?
Yeah. So nothing here is an endorsement. Definitely do the research and see what best fits you. But three brokerage companies that do accept ITINs, which are individual tax identification numbers, which are a number assigned by the IRS, typically to undocumented individuals in the subject matter that we're talking about. So if you don't have a social security number, but instead you have an ITIN, these three brokerages are Fidelity, Charles Schwab, and TD Ameritrade. Currently liking Fidelity myself because they have the zero cost index funds. But there's always fees when you also sell your investments, which I haven't done at this point. So I haven't gone through like a full on analysis. But as far as keeping your money there invested, it doesn't cost you anything if you look through the zero cost index funds and you go through there.
Yeah, so those are really good companies, particularly Charles Schwab and Fidelity. Those are like two of my
Yeah.
top three. Now, I have to admit, my favorite has always been Vanguard, so I'm disappointed that they don't offer that program. Have
Yeah.
you ever looked into that to see why?
I have looked into that. So in their rules, they say that you have to be a resident. Now there's nuance, whether it's the legal term, so a legal resident, or if it's just, hey, you're a resident, you've been here long enough and you have a valid USA address. So some people say that they do accept people who are immigrants, but that may be, if you have a DACA. But it gets so nuanced when I called them in person to figure it out, that I was just like, listen, they obviously don't have the volume of people coming through asking these questions, so they themselves don't know how to answer this. We're just going to stop wasting our time. We're going to go, here are three other options, which for sure, we can set up a brokerage account and you can do investments through. So once they get their stuff figured out, they can polish up the wording on their website. It may be something that I circle back to and look at Vanguard as well, because I myself have Vanguard and Fidelity. So I was also like, oh, what? Like Vanguard doesn't explicitly say that they will do business with immigrants. Okay, well, got to move on.
Yeah. Well, so I've always been 100% Vanguard, but then last year I said, man, I'm really digging Fidelity. So I moved my wife and our Roth IRAs over to Fidelity, but the 403Bs and everything else is in Vanguard right now. But my thing is this: it's not always most important with what you're investing in or what brokerage account you're going to. I think what's most important is the fact that you realize you need to invest, and then you get in touch with somebody like Maribel, and you are investing in low cost index funds. And I think that once you do that, then you have a very bright future ahead of you. So you're doing a great job spreading the word. So why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the things you've been doing since we last spoke? I know that you were at FinCon.
Yes. So I got to be a speaker at FinCon, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go check it out. And then I was like, what if I'm a speaker though? Like, who else is talking about immigrant finances? And I had some coaches already reach out, and they were like, hey, I have this type of client, they're an immigrant, what high yield savings account is good for them? Because Ally is apparently not good for them. And I'm like, oh yeah, Ally. No. Or they're like, what brokerage accounts? Because Vanguard's apparently not good for them. And I'm like, yeah, Vanguard's not going to do it for you over here on this case. So having coaches reach out, I was like, I think this is something that could benefit talking to other coaches about. And that's what FinCon is, right? Money Nerds Unite. And it's a bunch of coaches getting together and talking about topics, and other people are also welcome to join, but the main demographic tends to be those people who are teaching personal finance out to their audiences. So I submitted and got, accepted. And so I went to FinCon in order to present how to help immigrants in your community thrive in the American system. So it was talking about how, basically, even if somebody is undocumented, financially, they could do a lot of the same things as a regular citizen, all the way from earning money to investing it. And so that was helpful for a lot of coaches who, oftentimes come with clients, and the client says, well, I'm afraid that, if I get an ITIN through the IRS, the ICE is going to be knocking at my door. And being able to bring up, the IRS code and going like, this code specifically says IRS does not talk to ICE unless in extenuating circumstances. And so, as coaches, we're just like, we need the exact, like, where's the exact wording? And so I brought that up, and I was like, trying to knock down those things that usually become barriers, especially for undocumented clients.
Wow, that is eye-opening to me, because I didn't know like there was a code that says that the IRS can't talk to ICE or anything. Like, you just think this is all U.S. government, so everybody's gonna be talking to everybody, But wow, so that's beneficial. That's good for somebody to know.
Yeah, and it's not that they can't; it's that they just say we don't talk to them, except like if there's another government agency that's already looking into this person, and now they're just going to the IRS and they're like, hey, they're trying to build some case on something. So it's not that the IRS offers any information. It's if another government agency already comes with like some type of case and they're like, hey, we need you to cooperate on this, then they're going to cooperate, right? They're all government, but they're not offering up our information.
So if it's somebody who might be money laundering, or somebody who is running a drug cartel, or somebody who might be sex trafficking, then at that point, maybe they will talk to the other.
Yeah, they'll talk to the other agencies like that. Like there's already something going on.
Yeah, and I think we'd all agree that, you need to talk to them at that point.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a part-time realtor, so I periodically see lenders who are talking about ITIN loans or mortgages as well. Do you talk a little bit about that?
So I don't get into real estate investing. I stick more with stock market. So I focus on the basics of personal finance. And then when people want to get into other things like Bitcoin investing, or cryptocurrency investing, or real estate investing, or other stuff, that way I feel comfortable that I've built a good foundation for them, from like emergency fund to like, hey, you can invest, and now you have your ITIN, you can invest, because sometimes they'll go to other people and other coaches will be like, you're undocumented, I don't even know if you can do this, right? So
Yeah.
with me, they're like, I know I can do it. So to help. So I don't talk about that, but then I send them off to other coaches who I know are well versed in that space.
That's awesome. You basically build a lot of confidence in your clients who probably didn't think that they could do certain things previously or previous
Mhm.
to speak on you. So that's great. So why don't you tell us about the New York Times article?
Yeah, so also, after we spoke, it got into the New York Times, and thank you so much for that. As you were saying, it's all about paying it forward, and so thank you for linking me up with the author of that article. And yeah, it was an article where it featured people from all walks of life, really, and just talking about the millennial struggle of how we struggle with the uncertainty of money, right? Like, I'm of a certain age and I'm still living with my parents, right? But then also going through that whole immigrant experience, and at least in Latin families or Latino families from Latin America, we're okay living in homes where there's multiple generations. Um, that's kind of how you survive in also having not as much money. So being able to tell that story and being able to be featured in the New York Times, I was like, oh my gosh. So that was really cool. Um, and yeah, I think it was great because it just features so many people from different walks of life. And I was reading through other people's stories as well. And I was like, damn, like, we all live here in the United States. Like, we're all going through uh, our lives simultaneously. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this. Like when I saw that article come out, I probably was just as proud as you were. So I was super happy when I saw that. It was a great piece, and I know that Charlotte does really good pieces. So when I do drop this interview, I'm definitely gonna post that link
Thank
in the
you.
description so people could check it out. So hey, you got anything else to say to the viewers?
Uh, you know, um, there's also, there was a article that came out. It came out in English, but then we went back and then they translated it into Spanish. So that one was with Next Advisor. So I'm super glad that now we're getting more like articles out there in Spanish as
Yes.
well. Cause we're like this, because it was like, this is what the coaches, want to tell immigrants that they like want to recommend to immigrants that they should do with money. And I was like, this is going to benefit people most in Spanish, right? And so they were like, oh, we're going to go back and do it in Spanish. And I was like, yay, thank
That's
you.
good.
So,
That's awesome.
look out there, Google my name. It's out there with some Spanish content, and a freebie is going to be dropping soon. That's going to be specifically for immigrant wealth building. So like the first things, even like how to translate a website that is not already translatable based on like the makers of the website. So
Awesome, awesome. So why don't you tell everybody how they can find you? I know you have a website out there.
yes, so you guys can find me on my website, www.ourwealthmatters.com, or through all social media handles. I mostly hang out on Instagram at ourwealthmatters. And yeah, other than that, I'm here for one-on-one coaching, and I also do presentations with either corporates, or recently have been doing a lot of universities, especially for the Dream Resource Centers, because it's such specialized information. So I'm open for that. If you guys want to bring personal finance where you guys are working at or where you're studying at, feel free to reach out.
Awesome, Maribel, and I can definitely sign off on her. She basically teaches the same things that I preach to people as well. She's 100% legit. I love what she does for the people, and she's amazing. It doesn't matter if you're immigrant or not. Like you can go to her and get some money coaching because she's gonna steer you the right way. So, hey, I appreciate you coming on today, Maribel,
Thank you, Rashad.
and we'll definitely be in touch.